This conference will now be recorded.
This is Karen Cook from the Home Modification Occupational Therapy Alliance, HMOTA. And thank you so much for coming today. I'm excited about our meeting. We have some very special guests today. Um, we've got Herb Cohen, and he is the founder, I assume, of Executive Leaders Radio. It's a broadcast nationally and internationally, and it's the #1 business radio show in the Mid-Atlantic states. So I'm really excited to have Herb and his team here. He also has brought a couple of his cohorts or a couple of his colleagues, Sean and Mike. And I'm going to let you introduce them, and then we can talk I'd like it if you could introduce yourselves, and then we can talk about why we're all here tonight.
Cool.
So go ahead.
So, Executive Leaders Radio, it's the leading business with heart radio show here on the actually in the country. We've had 11,583 CEOs on the air, typically running businesses 10 million, 50 employees plus, on up to $60 billion public companies. And so I know a lot of CEOs. And occasionally we do a special series. And I have a couple of close buddies that I try to collaborate with. One of whom is Mike Levinson. I'll tell you who Michael is. He's a disappointment. He disappointed his parents because he went ahead and got an accounting as well as a law degree and never practiced either. And instead started an IT services firm and did very well. He got a venture capital funded in the 90s and sold it. And Michael and I were involved with forming a founding CEO group in early 2000s, and out of that came one of the early internet incubators in the country. That's where you provide some support as well as some funding to get internet businesses off the ground. Michael co-founded DreamIt, and out of DreamIt came another business called WiseHive, which was a Google Doc competitor. And Michael just celebrated his 65th birthday. He had a surprise party on Saturday night. And Michael and I have talked about my mother and father. My father passed a number of years ago. My mother's in a CCRC. Michael's mother's in a CCRC. Michael's father passed a couple years ago. We've been talking about aging. And Michael told me that he wants to do good. So, because he doesn't have to worry about his next meal. And we've been talking about this aging in place thing, and the fact that, and it just so happens, an uncle of mine did the I Fell Down and Can't Get Up back in 1976, Al Booker. And we think that unfortunately there's too many emergencies and it doesn't have to happen that way. So that's why we were interested in speaking with you guys. And one of the other CEOs that I've interviewed is Sean Swaim. Sean was involved with one of the early and larger SEO web promotion companies, and branched off and started his own about 10 years ago. Sean's been involved with marketing a lot of different stuff on the web. And I certainly thought one of the ways to get the word out is with some web stuff. So Michael and I invited Sean in, and so the three of us are really here. We got a couple questions for you guys, and hopefully we can bring some value to this world of aging in place. Michael, what did I say that was stupid or wrong? Sean, what did I say that was wrong or stupid?
Good to me.
All right. How's that, Karen?
That sounds wonderful. So what brings Herb and Sean and Mike into our HMOTA meeting is they met with one of our OTs, Cynthia Laurie, who recommended that Herb talk to me. And basically, as he was saying, they're going to be doing a series on aging in place. And correct me if I'm wrong, Herb, you were looking for, if someone's going into looking at aging in place or taking care of their adult children, who do you go to? Who's the professional to go to? And Herb said to me, I knew it was either OTs or nurses. And I think everyone here can agree that it's OTs. And that's because that is what we specialize in. Is we've got the medical background, but nursing attends healthcare needs. OT makes people more functional, helps them to interact with their environment more independently, and we modify activities um, and environments. And that's what we went to school for. So OT is definitely the place to be. But the other thing that I thought, as far as all of us meeting together, is maybe we can answer some questions to help Herb and his colleagues to get to where they'd like to be. But one thing Herb and I have discussed, and he has a very great understanding of, he's dealt with similar things, is how I feel our biggest struggle is creating value in the market and recognition of occupational therapists and what we do. And in that way, I was hoping that we could pick your brains a little bit, Herb and Mike and Sean. And so I'm hoping that this could be sort of a symbiotic meeting where we all benefit.
Sure. Well, this is embarrassing what I'm going to tell you next, but we've done 11,853 CEO interviews, and I got to tell you, I didn't know what an occupational therapist was. Well, I did. I knew what a physical therapist was. I knew what a speech therapist was. I didn't know what an occupational therapist was. And I was talking to Mike and Sean, and we were talking to some of our buddies, and I was talking to some of the other CEOs. I don't know that the public recognizes, number one, that they got a problem, and number two, that there's a solution to it. And Michael and I and Sean have been through this before, where you've actually got a product or service and the market's not fully developed. So it's a timing issue, but it's like what's the chicken and what's the egg? It's like, and the supply and the demand are never exactly the same. You got to plant some seeds at this stage of the game, in my opinion, in order to introduce the services you guys are providing to the market. And of course, some of the questions are, what's the sweet spot in the market? What's the best way of getting the word out? I can go right into it. Um, I think what might make the most sense is if we ask a couple of questions, and then we're happy to speak with you guys individually or collectively regarding some stuff to help get the word out, to help grow your businesses. And what I'm not seeing a full screen with everybody. I've got 8 of us on my screen. Michael, do you have everybody on your screen? Sean, do you have everybody on your screen, or do you just have partial?
I think a lot of people don't have their cameras on. I think that's why you're not seeing everybody.
That's what the problem is. Okay. What I was going to do is just ask everybody, how many folks are sole practitioners versus how many are running businesses? And if you guys could raise your hand, how many are sole practitioners? Let me see a raise of hands here versus running a small business. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3. How many folks are running a business with more than just yourself? Raise your hand. With more than just yourself. Good. Okay, that gives me a sense. Good. And I would expect those numbers to go up. I think the folks that, what we're seeing is, and we've talked about it a little bit. We believe you guys are in the second inning of a 9-inning game, and this is not uncommon with an emerging industry. And it happened 15 years ago with educational consultants that help college-bound kids and their parents not kill each other and get into the proper college and help, so on and so forth. It's happening with this, and we've seen it happen with a variety of other industries. So, Mike and Sean, should we ask a couple questions, or all right, Mike, Sean, do you guys want to start off with some of the basic ones that we had discussed, and we'll get some input to it, and we'll see where we can go from here. What are you guys thinking?
Sean, you want to run with that?
Well, I think the first thing is one of the first things we thought about was what's the real, in order to help the public really appreciate the essence of what you guys are doing, what's the quickest, fastest, easiest way to get that point across as a starting point? You know, years ago, there was Where's the Beef? The problem is I don't remember which fast food restaurant that was with, but I remember that ad. And we all remember I fell down and can't get up. The question is, what's the tagline and what's the essence of what you're providing so that it hits the headline? And assuming that we do some radio shows and you guys can leverage that into the different other media, radio, TV, print, whatever it might be, what's the essence of what you're providing? What I think it is, and maybe I'm mistaken, and this is not as crisp as it needs to be, is you guys are doing the in-home assessment. I don't know that most people realize that there's such a thing as an in-home assessment. And I don't think they have a clue regarding whether it's free or whether it's paid, whether it's cash, whether it's Medicaid reimbursed so can somebody educate me on that? Am I correct that it's an in-home assessment? Am I correct or am I mistaken that the public doesn't appreciate that they can even get it done? And this is both the senior citizen as well as their kids. And I got another question for you. Are you guys charging for the assessment or is the assessment free? So if somebody can give me some input with some of this stuff, we can begin to get our
Julie,
arms
you
around.
want to start?
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Julie, you
Yep.
want to start?
Oh, I think the waters get really muddied for the in-home assessment because contractors offer in-home assessments free. Other, home health agencies offer in-home assessments as part of their intake, or home care agencies do. So it's so hard as an occupational therapist to show our value above what others consider the in-home assessment that they offer for free. I mean, for us, if there's medical necessity, it can be covered under insurance, but there's also, private pay because we're bringing so much more to the table than the in-home assessment. We're looking at individual needs. We're looking at um, anticipated disease progression and basing it on that. We're looking at low cost solutions as well as bathroom remodel, depending on finances and what the goals are. Maybe they only want to stay there 4 more years. Maybe they want to stay there for a lifetime. Maybe, what I mean? There's just so much more involved with the
So,
individual, the
so
family, the
Julie, you're
environment.
telling me that for the most part, this could be insurance, this could be reimbursed, whether it's private or whether it's insurance.
If there's medical necessity, we get a
How,
doctor's
how how
order.
how organized are the diagnostics, are the diagnosticians in the referral networks where it would be reimbursed? How organized is that with you guys locally, let alone regionally, let alone nationally?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of hoops to jump through. I feel like it's a lot of barriers because people kind of then give up. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to get you my insurance cards, I got to get a doctor's order, you got to fill out your
But if the
consents. Mhm.
diagnostician is referring to you, doesn't
I
that
don't honestly don't get a lot of orders from directly from the doctors. It's the people asking for us. Usually it's for me, it's a lot of word of mouth.
there
Like,
was an
I
OT I spoke with who told me they were getting referrals from home health care agencies.
maybe somebody else wants to speak too, but yeah, I mean, that does sometimes happen, but sometimes you find like home care agencies feel like they kind of already do that and that we're redundant. I find that sometimes. So, but let somebody else
I
talk.
thought my sense was that this home health care agency that was referring was basically dumping the patient on the OT because they couldn't help them any further.
Yep.
And it seems to me that there's a referral. It just seems to me that home health care, it seems to me that neurologists, there's a whole mess of diagnosticians. I don't know if they know who to refer to. Social workers, discharge planners.
So I'm Bridget Daly, and I've been a home care OT for over 10 years. And I left that field, and now I'm in not for profit with the Meals on Wheels organization in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And as the home care OT, you are allotted so many visits to focus on a couple of things that the insurance company will pay for. And then, even if you recommend something as simple as a toilet riser, it is not reimbursed by insurance. And so, half the time, you're going to loan closets, trying to help somebody buy it on Amazon. And then there's the whole installation process, which then costs money. So a lot of people don't have family, don't have friends, and you just kind of shrugged your shoulders and said, well, that's what you need. Good luck. And now that I'm in this nonprofit, we are operated via grants, and our president just made us part of their Meals on Wheels program. It's no longer a pilot where I can go in, it is free to our older adults. And I do the assessment. I help figure out what they need. We have a small budget. We do not have ginormous dollars, and we can ask community partners for funding, and I can make sure I will show the older adults, here are your choices. Because sometimes if insurance covers something, which is very rare, the client doesn't want it because it's not something that is pleasing to them. And there's more than one toilet riser on the market, for God's sakes. So again, it's having buy-in, conversation, consultation with the client to find solutions that work for them instead of saying, this is what you get. Hope you like it.
Sure. Yeah, and it
Although,
seems to me there's
if
two markets out there. One market is those that can afford self-pay, the ones that, and then there's another market that can't. And the there may be some similarity in the marketing, but I think you guys got to choose which market you're going after.
we want the
So,
self-pay because, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Bridget. When
Mhm.
you go in as a home health OT, you can't just go in and do a home evaluation. You've got other things that you're supposed to be working on, daily therapy. I mean, can you do the functional evaluation and then do the home evaluation, tell them, work on design, work on equipment, that kind of stuff?
No, it was all based on their medical need. So if,
okay.
yeah, it had nothing to do
So,
with, yeah,
so,
doing a
Yeah,
home
and I
assessment.
mean,
so
look, every business has
there's
got to
not,
decide. Every
yeah,
business has got to decide which market to go after, and if you take a look, um, there's not, and you got a choice. I mean, there's the market of self-pay, there's the market of not self-pay. And they would be different strategies. There may be some of the same referral networks, but you also may want to qualify your patients. And what I'm trying to do right now is just help you sort this out because it's pretty obvious that there's a market there. It's pretty obvious to me that there's a substantial business out there. It's pretty obvious to me that you're in the second inning of a 9 inning game, and this market's going to continue to expand and explode. Nobody's aware that the solution's out there. So, and this is not uncommon at the beginning of an industry. But so and if you're going to invest time and money, I think you need to make money. It's probably the self pay that you got to go after to begin with. And there's
agreed.
nothing wrong with that.
Kim, do you have something you'd like to add to the conversation?
Sorry, I can just say that I do self-pay. I don't do any Medicare reimbursement. My referrals, I get a lot of referrals from home care, not home health. Home health is licensed to provide physical, occupational, and speech therapy services. Home care is unskilled services where caregivers go in the home and help take care of people.
Thank you.
Um, they really get a lot of benefit from our services because they're motivated to stay in the home, they're motivated to keep them in the home, and a lot of the times we can make recommendations to make it way easier for the caregiver to care for that person.
Perfect. I stand corrected. So therefore, what I understand now, as opposed to my ignorance is bliss, is it's home care, not home health care. And home care agencies could be a referral source for you guys. Am I reading that correctly?
Right.
Okay. There's a lot of them out there. There's some that are national, that are franchisors, that are owned and operated, let alone there's a gazillion of them that are out that are local and regional. But there's a source of business just waiting. Let's keep going because what we're doing is coming up with a marketing plan.
Kirsten, did it raise your hand still up?
Hi, I'm Kristen Linehop.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So I've been for about a year trying to launch a private practice after doing 27 years of hospital and home health. And there's a variety of big obstacles. To answer some of your questions, it's fraudulent to do a home safety assessment for someone who it is medically necessary for. So it's not as easy as saying, oh, this person has money and they are willing to pay it. If they are on Medicare, it is fraudulent to offer that service and bill them because that's a benefit that Medicare offers. Then the flip side of that is that there are a lot of affluent people who I think just generationally are not going to spend one dime outside of what they have paid into their Medicare, their Social Security, that kind of thing. So I've had people refuse to let me come out on a $20 copay when
Yep.
Medicare paid 80%, and they
Mhm.
won't put, one home modification in their house
Sure.
because it doesn't look good or it costs
Yeah.
too much.
Oh, this reminds me of what happened with concierge care with doctors. Believe it or not, the largest group of people that are paying for concierge medical care don't happen to be the rich. It happens to be a subsection of the middle class. It's very interesting. And so it's not when we're talking about self-pay versus not self-pay. I'm not talking about the wealthy. It's we have to hone into what that group is. And concierge care, I think, is a good indicator. Even I'm just using it as an example, though.
We have a couple concierge companies that work with us that send us referrals on a national basis. We don't get a ton from them, but we do get some referrals.
You're talking about MDVIP and so on and so forth.
Yeah, similar to that. Yeah.
I think that we may want to lean on Michael at one point because Michael has actually developed two software businesses. It seems to me maybe if there was some sort of a software platform where we could pull together the referral sources for you guys, might be very helpful. Let's just keep on going here. This is the brainstorming that's needed to come up with, well, how about if we try it this way? Well, how about if we try it that way? This is what's needed. We're beginning the process at this point, and you got to beat it a couple of different ways, a couple of different, to come up with what does and what doesn't make sense.
Marlene, is there anything that you?
Hi, yeah. So I just wanted to clarify, and Herb, I did speak with you separately. I'm the Baltimore OT. When you say an in-home assessment, we need to make a distinction because getting back to our tagline, OT assesses a person, and a contractor who does not have a health background assesses the house.
Thank you.
So, like, if you're asking for someone to do an in-home assessment and say, oh, like you have a lot of steps, so you need ramps, then that's always self-pay. However, if you are looking at an assessment of the person in their environment, let's see how you get in and out of your bathtub. Do you need a shower? Do you need different faucets? That's the OT part. And in terms of whether or not self-pay or Medicare, as I think Kristen already mentioned, that if they do have a diagnosis, a health condition, a recent fall, anything that is indicative of a health situation, then as she described, then it's actually fraudulent to not bill Medicare if they're a Medicare beneficiary. So it's not really an either or, it's kind of a both. And the home modification, but the assessment of the person in their environment is not self-pay if they unless they're wellness, if they're just trying to plan for the future.
Michael, if there was a piece of software here, that's the checkbox that avoids the fraud stuff because you're going over, you're reviewing the pay. Keep on rolling. You guys are rocking. I know Michael's seeing stuff. I know Sean's seeing stuff. I certainly am. Keep on going. And there's opportunity here. I don't. I am. I, 27 minutes ago, I thought you guys had an opportunity. I'm even more convinced now because these referral networks aren't developed. And, it's like, oh, we're committing fraud. A piece of software can stop that from happening. Keep on
Melba.
going.
Melba.
Mm, Okay, hello. Maybe another way, I have been working through the older adult home modification program that uses the federal grants to do the home modifications, working together with contractors, and this grant requires OT to do the home assessment and the client assessment. And because you subcontract through them, then we overpass the Medicare kind of rule that we need to bill Medicare because we are not working directly with the client. We are working with the organization. Then it could be like a way to figure out how can we subcontract with other companies, with architects or somebody, so we can directly go and do the home modification.
So the grants are really nice for the lower income. So lower income people can do the aging in place and get it paid for. What I find is the more affluent people have no problem whatsoever. They like to plan, they'll pull us in. It's the middle class that is, I feel like, an untapped market. And so, for instance, for me, I don't bill Medicare at all. I have a construction company, so I can bill as a builder. So OTs can bill other people, not the client, in order to be paid for these home evaluations. So for me, my construction company will bill the client. I'm the OT that works for the construction company or one of the other OTs. And so that way we can get around the Medicare issue because we have the OT, or it's not the OT who's billing, it's the construction company that's billing. Or we can bill the client's children. That can help us. That too will allow us to circumvent Medicare. So, and then I personally don't call it an OT home evaluation. I call it an OT design consult because there's no way Medicare is paying for design.
These are the nuances. Yeah, I mean, we're digging right into it. You guys are going in the right case. Listen, there's 1,001 things we can talk about. We can talk about, oh, woe is me, and we're victims, and this is never getting off the ground. That's not the way. When we're not taking that approach. The approach we're taking is, how can this work? Who are the potential referral networks? What can we do about this? Because otherwise, I don't know. I've never had a legitimate job. All I've ever done is entrepreneur and try to figure stuff out. Those are the people I like surrounding myself with. Um, we're on the right direction.
Kristen, do you have something to talk about? I know what I said might incite some interest.
Yeah, I just was really in my community development trying to go down the route of what will people pay for, and it really comes to their wealth and their beauty. So I've started, my tagline is starting to be plan for your health like you do your wealth. I really want people to understand that we need to be thinking about this in our 40s and 50s and 60s when we're healthy before anything occurs. Falls are the leading cause of injury and death in a certain age group, and that age group is, like, with the baby boomers, just a tsunami of people waiting to uh, have potential injury and harm that does not allow them to retire in their homes, which is what everybody wants to do. And
So
there's
I have
nothing
an idea.
for nursing home.
70% of people don't even have an estate plan. 70% of people don't have an estate plan. They don't have a will. They don't have a living will. They don't. Now, I think I understand the reason why, which is the estate attorneys have done a pretty terrible job in terms of marketing themselves. But I got an idea. And I think we need to get some PR near the obituary section of the newspapers or the online. I think people reading the obituaries might be motivated, and we just need to get some press there. I don't think it should be in the amusement section of the newspaper. I don't think it should be in the family section. I think it needs to be near the obituaries. My point is, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I'm trying to do is create an impulse to buy, a call to action. And remember, I fell down and can't get up. There's an impulse there, man. You're going to make a phone call, and what Sean's doing and what Michael's doing, we're just gathering some information. But this is the kind of stuff we just got to keep on reiterating and throw it around. And how about if we did it this way? You know, that's a stupid idea. Let's try it that way instead. You know. But I'm pretty comfortable. It's the middle class and the upper middle class. Because that's the largest market that's going to serve you guys. You know. Let's keep on going.
Melba?
I think that maybe we have been thinking all this time about the elderly, you know, say 65, 70, 90. And when we think about, my mom is 83, and I think, what if she falls? This is going to bring a lot of work on me. Then I have been trying to think that maybe we need to market to the children, even the grandchildren,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I work in the nursing home. I work in the hospitals for 30
Yep.
years.
Yep.
And I saw the burden for the children trying to figure out what is. I'm planning to go to France right now, and my father fell, my trip is ruined. What can I do? Then I think that if we really hit that population, we can overpass the Medicare deal that is our obstacle, one of our obstacles, and maybe we can hit them with the message. You know, we can go to their hearts, and other people, they try to save their money, so they don't want to use it. They don't want to put a grab bar. I don't need it. It's denial there. They don't want to accept that they need a grab bar. They don't want to accept that they are getting old. Younger populations, they see that the rest of the people are getting old. Then if we hit
So I
that,
think that, to me, what that means is we should try something near the travel section where it says, "Aren't you worried about mom falling down when you're away in Vienna?" And,
mhm,
and that's not the right heading, but the point, what we're looking at is an impulse to buy. That's what it's called. How do you create a sense of urgency? And let's see, Titus, you haven't said anything. What are you thinking?
Honestly, I was just getting a little bit of an idea off of what Melto was saying. Because a lot of the younger generation, and especially with the baby boomers aging, I don't think people realize how much time and energy and effort and how much training you really need to take care of, like your loved one. So and they fall, and it's like even if you have a broken leg, even if it's temporary for like that's 3 or 4 month period, you're gonna have to be taking your parents to appointments and things like that. How can I successfully design my home environment, like even if it's just a room, a bathroom, so it's easier for them to do those like functional. We're all OTs getting back to those functional activities of daily living tasks and making it easier.
Sounds to me like we should have some testimonial videos up on YouTube, et cetera, talking about, "I'm glad I did this." And then some folks talking about, "Oh, damn it, I wish I had done it."
Right. And then even if it's like, I guess this is getting into like specialty areas, but like even like people have like ACL injuries, like thinking of younger people, like that's even, I'm originally from Chicago. So like if you lived in a high rise building, like how am I getting my groceries? How am I doing all these things? You don't think about that till you're booted up as you're trying to do your rehab. So even a
It's
quick
another
little,
market.
yeah.
There's no, what we're just talking about is, okay, if we go into densely populated areas, what's the proper way to advertise to them? What's the proper way to get the word out? And by the way, how about sports injuries?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold
Well,
on.
and then even jumping back to like you're saying those high density areas like Chicago, for example, a lot of those people live like, I'm in my early 30s. I'm thinking back 5 or 6 years ago, people were living in those apartment complexes. Most of those environments, like each one of those apartments, whether it be a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, they're very similar design. So if you figure out a way to maximize like just 1 or 2 bedrooms, you can have all those units. Like you're hitting multiple, and then every person's different. You can add a little specificity to each design per person, but the bare bones of what you're going to be doing, you need to learn how to put how to
I,
get to the things like
I
that.
have
Like
I happen to think if we were going to get together again, if you guys thought it made sense, and if Michael and Sean could be cajoled into this, I think basically it's a brainstorming meeting regarding how do you bring business in the door. That's the focus of a session, by the way, because that's where this is going right now. Jill, what are you thinking? You're quiet. Say something. Jill, what are you thinking? Jill Finkel.
You're on mute, Jill.
Yeah,
Yep,
you have to
I
unmute yourself.
lost my mute button there. So I don't have a business or anything at this point. I'm attending these meetings, hoping to contribute and get information. But I have really kind of tuned into the idea of marketing to children, having been in the past 10, 15 years dealt with family crisis, adults and parents.
What caused the crisis? What was the trigger that caused the crisis?
It was illness and falls
Whose illness? Was it
and
mom, dad, a cousin, an aunt, and
parents.
uncle?
Yeah, parents.
What kind of
Both
illness was
myself
it?
and my husband. And so seemingly adults that you thought they would be planning, but they didn't. And there's a really window of time where you can have that conversation with them. Once you've passed that window, that
Mm-hmm.
conversation goes away and you just can't convince them. So it's the children convincing the
Mm-hmm.
parents. So
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe the age span would probably be, 50s, 60s. And often you get past that for a lot of them, and that window of opportunity to convince the parents is gone at
Good.
to that
This is
point.
all. This is all the marketing stuff. Ethan, what are you thinking? You're not going to hide your. I see your face. We need your voice.
Full disclosure, I'm not an occupational therapist. Karen asked me to help with her marketing. What I do is I publish an email newsletter called My Aging Parents. And, the premise of that is exactly what we're talking about, as you can imagine. So I'm thinking, Herb, that, a lot of your questions are just exactly the kind of very simple, focused, organic discovery questions that it's really helpful for people who are in the trenches to hear. Because when you are heads down and trying to make things happen, and all you know is that for some reason now physical therapists are now offering evaluations. And there's a lot of companies out there starting to use AI now. They go out and they film
Let me,
the
Ethan.
interior space.
Ethan, let me ask you a question. So
Yeah,
you're publishing a newsletter. Does it
yeah.
have tips and techniques
Practical tips and strategies.
and how often do you publish this newsletter?
Right now, every other week.
Every other week.
Mhm.
And is there any revenue, any advertiser supported, or how you paying the bills?
Still, right now, just paying out of my coffers from the 30 years of marketing experience.
Sean,
But
what are you thinking?
still discovery.
Sean?
Ethan,
Hey,
just to
Sean.
kind of loop it to Herb's questions leading up to this. How are you going about building your list? What's your how are you hooking people into?
Strategic partnerships, staying off social media. We could talk. I don't want to bore people with it, but essentially, I'm aligning myself with people doing meaningful work and true believers, because the space right now is people are starting to see the age wave that's been foretold for 30 years. As it's here and people's feet are getting wet. And it's very exciting when people start looking at total addressable market, and you've got a lot of people rushing into the space with with VC money. They're rolling up, independent operators. There's a lot going on that's interesting. Just so you know, I actually found Karen. I knew about her 3 years ago while I was doing deep research on home modifications and how people solve these particular problems. And I cold called her one day because I have a feature, three things. I needed somebody who could speak. And I don't want to talk to an OT who's three months out of school. And I didn't want to talk to an OT who isn't. You have to find people with courage. Everybody who's working with Karen has courage and hope,
Everyone.
because things are changing so much now for anyone with a medical professionals, and that's what OTs
Mm-hmm.
are.
Mm-hmm.
They're cogs in the hierarchy,
Good.
and they have to find a new way forward. So
Ethan, I think that
Karen was very excited when she
in
was.
the midst of us doing this research, I think we're going to be able to help you build your list. Nicole, what are you thinking? You came on screen. Tough luck. Now you got to talk, and you got to
Um,
unmute yourself. Yeah.
I think I agree with everybody so far. I also think there's a lot of people kind of in the middle where maybe they're like myself, who's taking care of a parent, who's also, you know, starting to, but also children who are have a diagnosis that will also need modifications to continue to live independently. And so I know it's a different avenue, but it's there. It's just finding the funding for it because a lot of the places, at least in where I live, they say that it doesn't need to be an OT. It can be anybody who can recommend things. And I obviously disagree with that, but um,
Mm-hmm.
I have
Yeah.
to
I
change
mean,
their minds.
Michael and I and Sean have talked about some of the folks that are certified that come from the construction industry. I have a strange feeling if they were to do the assessment, we'd be buying a bathtub from them as opposed to evaluating the individual. But don't repeat I said that. I don't need to make any more enemies. But we're on the same page with that. And I think that, and I don't want to ruin your whole meeting, and I think what we should go very shortly. But in any event, if you guys wanted to get together and have a marketing conversation, starting with who's the market, and then what kind of messaging do we want to get to the market, and I think that's the next step. And I'm not worried about the funding issue. Don't worry about that because
I know
there's
that's
there's there right now there's some ways to generate some business that ain't going to cost a lot of money, and you guys aren't taking advantage of it because there's diagnosticians out there, and I stand corrected, home care agencies, not home health care. There's stuff. If we talked about it, there's ways you can pick up business right now.
So I think the biggest issue though I find with aging in place, and I don't know about everyone else, is I work with people who do have money and who can pay for things, but we don't need that. We're fine. I get a lot of that. Um, I think I told you once before, so I work with a lot of adult children. If they can get us in the door to do the evaluation, selling their parents on installing grab bars or doing things, that's a hard sell as well. I feel like nobody knows OT and we need to get over that marketing issue. But basically, I've been doing this since 2006. I've
Hmm.
seen a lot of big guys come into this space, you know, guns a-blazing, we're going to take over, we're going to do this and that, and then they give up and leave
That's
because
because
they
they're
can't-
not focusing in on a call to action.
is so how do we get the call to action to resonate with the
The first thing you do is you take a look at who the market is. That's the first thing. Who's the customer? The second thing is what's going to cause an impulse to buy? And then the third thing is what kind of messaging. That's part of the whole process. It's just because you guys haven't gone through it. And by the way, I'm not a consultant. I'm 68 years old. I'll tell you who I am. I I was like Michael. I was an embarrassment to my parents. I wasn't bright enough to get into a good college, and I ended up dropping out. And I ended up starting a business. I wrote a business plan when I was 15. I started the business when I was 18. When I sold it, it was the largest in the country in two different industries. And the chairman and dean of that university that I dropped out of in Philadelphia, Temple University, asked me to start the entrepreneurial center there. I was a dropout. I did. And then Wharton, Fairleigh Dickinson, Ursinus, and Drexel came to me to start their entrepreneurial centers. I guess they were hard up. And I did. And then I met I met the CEO of the first public venture capital firm in the country, Pete Musser here in Philadelphia, and the president of IKEA. And I started the first private equity angel group in the country. This was in 94, 95. And I've been through a lot of deals. And I'm not a deal guy. I'm an entrepreneur. I started a company that helps physicians prescribe and dispense medicine in their offices. I started an early Spanish language book publisher. I'm still a partner in a specialty finance company. And Leaders Radio is a company I started 20 years ago because of my bad self-esteem. It gives me a chance to hang out with a bunch of CEOs. I love entrepreneuring. So what we're going through right now, it's my nature. I like working from a blank piece of paper. Michael's capable of it also because he's done it. He's not a consultant. You can't hire Michael Levinson. And Sean's not looking for that kind of work either. Sean likes working from a blank piece of paper. So you got three guys here that are like reasonably dysfunctional. They like working from a blank piece of paper, got nothing to do on a Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. That's the game here. I don't know where this is going to go, but I knew that if we were going to get into negative, we can't do it. It's not going to happen. It's like, fine, okay, we're done. But I'm not getting that from you guys. What I'm hearing is there's some serious possibilities here. And I got to craft some radio shows coming out of this, but I see it. I could see that developing from this. Why don't we do this? We'll leave you guys alone to have the rest of your meeting. We wasted enough of your
We're not
time.
going to let you off if we can at all avoid it. We've got a few more people who'd like to talk, and I feel like we know some of the issues, so I'd like to really focus on that, but there are three people who are waiting to talk, and so
And by the way, what we're really looking at is okay. Good. Dawn, Dawn Hunt, you're first. You came on screen. What are you thinking, Miss Dawn Hunt?
Yeah, sorry, I'm mislabeled. It should be Dawn Heiderscheit. So anybody who knows me by that, this is on for a different reason. But yeah, number one, I'm in Philly. So Herb, I didn't realize that you were local.
We're in Philadelphia.
I'm out in Roxborough, Manayunk, and I've been running my business for about 5-6 years out here. So
gotcha.
One.
Michael's in Fancy Dancy Bryn Mawr, and Sean's up in Langhorne, and I happen to be in Wingcote Jenkintown.
Oh, there you go. Well, at some point, maybe we'll meet up. Who knows? But I was going to say, like, I used to be part of HMOTA a whole lot more, and now I got so wrapped up in my own business. Sorry, Karen, I haven't been here for a while, but I do this. I want to tell everybody, like, you do need to talk to the kids. You need to be meeting with the care managers. You need to stop thinking nobody knows what OT is. Who gives a shit? Like, excuse my language, but like, who cares if they don't know us? Just give them the solution. So I actually am really appreciating this conversation right now because I think OTs, we need a little bit more of a kick in our butts to just kind of like, just go do it, go do the thing. For me right now, I've tapped into every single market, but I recognize that every single market has a different marketing approach. And I'm so busy in my business. I have 3 OTs who work under me. They don't all work full time, but they are doing the hours that they can do. So for those of you who are in metro areas, this is completely doable. Rural, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I could do what I'm doing in your areas quite the same way. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole different market of whether you're doing adaptive modifications recommendations or if you're going the design route like Karen does. I mean, I don't do any construction. I'm full consultant, but it took 5 years though. When people say it takes 5 years to grow a business, for me, it took 5 years before I'm really starting to see.
Dawn, what are the primary sources of revenue for your referrals?
I started grant work. So I'm partnered with Habitat for Humanity, Rebuilding Together, City of Philadelphia. I've gotten multiple of their contracts. So I kind of worked in the shadows there. My private pay stuff has all come from like private care managers, and it all comes from meeting people for coffee and lunch. I don't have a high market. Like if you Google me, you're not going to see these like sales stuff. But like every week in the last year, I've gotten about 3 phone calls, and then it becomes sales. You have to convert, and you have to be confident in what you're offering. You have to be okay with charging people who can afford to be charged. And yes, those of us who are on Medicare, you have to know when to bill Medicare, and you have to have your system set up to bill Medicare, but you also have to be willing to sell a hybrid model.
So one of the things I've recognized in an emerging industry is the key is to identify positive, relatable role models. You got one here in Dawn.
Sorry, I've got a lot of opinions, so I apologize to people, but I do. And I'm not trying to take the show from Karen because she has built a lot here.
When we do another session, you'll be critical in that session because you've got the practical experience of what to do and what not to do.
Well, and I could be doing better. It's not like I'm rolling in the money in this. So that's the other thing I want people to know. Like it is hard.
That's part of entrepreneuring. Nothing's ever good enough. Good for you.
Yeah.
Sheila O'Connor.
Yes.
What are you thinking?
This is great. I've enjoyed this very much. I just wanted to give you another perspective of something I've seen in the marketplace. I've been doing home modifications, home accessibility for 7 years, And one thing I didn't hear come up at all was people that have hired the big box store folks to come in and make uh, wheelchair accessible bathrooms, for instance. Or like I had a lady that they spent $20,000 on a bathroom and she couldn't even get underneath it in her wheelchair. And the other thing, they had the floors redone, laminate flooring, but it wasn't they had no idea with her power wheelchair that weighed 800 pounds. It's ruined. I mean, she hardly had it a couple months before. Every time she turned, the floor is tearing up, and so I just
I got you loud and clear, shit. But
yeah.
but the guy had a CAP certification. Ooh, forget I said that. I get you loud and clear, and it's unfortunate because anybody can create a certification, and the public doesn't know any better yet. So we'll get the word out. By the way, one of the ways you create a certification which ends up with teeth is good PR at the proper time and the proper publications, and it's just going to take some time for that word to get out. Martha Pack.
Hey, yes, thank you. I wanted to say too that I feel like there is a market for, so when they say Medicare, like there's Medicare Part A and there's Medicare Part B. And Part B is an outpatient service, but you can do it in the home for these home assessments that we're talking about. But you cannot do Medicare Part A and Part B at the same time. So if someone is receiving home health services, it's a skilled service under Medicare Part A, we could technically be going in as private pay in conjunction with those home health agencies and partnering to get them the correct equipment or design for modifying their shower, whatever the case may be after a stroke or whatever. And at that same time, another thought is while they're in the rehab units, there's like 2 or 3 weeks of acute rehab. That is also a time we could be going into those rehab units and saying, hey, let me talk to your therapist. I understand the language. What do we need to do in their home? I could go do the home assessment, with the family while your loved one is in the rehab unit.
Well, what I think is you guys are just lazy because I'm hearing a whole mess of ideas here that would generate revenue. I don't know why you're not doing it. Well, come on. This is just a natural, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but it's in front of you. I hear there's possibilities, and it's a matter of just brainstorming them through. I would just do a whiteboard, just brainstorm them through, then put them in priority order. It's sitting in front of you. All right, Michael, let's leave. Michael and Sean, let's leave them go. It's almost 9 o'clock, and that way we can go to sleep. Goodbye, everybody. I think, Karen, we're going to be talking with you tomorrow. If it's still too.
I think so. Yeah.
All right, good. You'll let us know if we ruined your night. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you later. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. So that was interesting. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but that was interesting. And it sounds, I don't know, I'm not doing a lot of aging in place. It is a untapped market. It's the Wild West. I do believe he's right. But I also think there's a marketing issue. And that is something we have to overcome. Whether it, go ahead.
Yeah. I think the issue is how to scale it because each of us can say, hey, like in my town, things are going well. Like as soon as people hear about me, I get great word of mouth and it's all, but that's one off, and it's not scaled more nationally that if it's not someone that one of us have talked to, then how does everyone else, which is the greater population? And I just want to add a population that I just honed in to. I was invited to participate in a talk. It was a panel, and the main speaker was a gynecologist that specializes in menopause. And I left there feeling like, wow, our market is women ages 48 to 53 because most women are the ones that are making these decisions and most women are the ones that are the sandwich generation. And with menopause comes the beginning of people starting to have joint pains and starting to think about their own difficulty with their knees or their steps or whatever. At the same time, they're thinking about their parents. So I was like super well received at this menopause conference. So I just want to put that out there to also don't hesitate to talk to your gynecologist.
That's really an interesting target market.
It was like a aha moment for me. It was like, oh, like I'm usually thinking like the orthopedic people, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, women between 43 and what'd you say, 60,
48 and 53.
48?
Because they're young enough that it's just sort of like coming to their mind, and their parents are just at that age where, you know, they're not in a nursing home yet, but like Melba or someone said, you are worried about if you can, you know, take that Italy vacation. You know, so I don't know. I just really like started to see that the power of that age female.
I
You know,
agree.
I think a place that would be really good for us to really market with are the, like, I can't remember who said about the health and the wealth thing, but with estate planners, making us part of, I mean, they're planning for what they want to happen to their estate. Part of it should be an aging in place. If you want to stay in your home, have a consultant so that when you're making a bathroom remodel in your 40s and 50s, you're considering that, right? So, I mean, I feel like that's such a missed opportunity that we haven't really, that I keep trying to think of people to tap into, you know, and financial planners as well. Like, you're planning for your future, you know, you should be thinking if this is the home you're staying in as you're remodeling, right? So, but how do we get there? Chambers of commerce, maybe, or local chambers of commerce to network with those folks. And I don't know, I just feel like that is where private pay would be a great place.
I have networked with those folks, and it's interesting. They're they're very sales oriented and very focused on what they're selling. Um, and although I initially thought that it would be a better source of referral, it hasn't panned out. And, you know, maybe it just depends on the chamber that you belong to or the people that you speak with. But they seem really focused on selling their product.
But I think that's where we come into play for community education. Like,
Right.
that is easy to sell. I'm going to make you money, not don't you want to enjoy that money you've saved, you know, and these are potential health obstacles that are going to come along that you need to be planning for and preventing. And some of those things are not popular and they've been around forever, like exercise and, you know, following a healthy diet. That's hard to sell people on. But I think if we can, like he's saying, that pain point, what's the problem we're going to fix? Unfortunately for us, most people don't see the light until the crisis has occurred for their parent or for themselves, and then it's too late. Everyone you talk to, everyone you meet that knows what you do is like, oh yeah, I have a parent, uncle, you know, they know the story and yet they're still not thinking about it for themselves. That's what we need to change, is the culture of I'm midlife now in my 40s and I need to start planning for my health retirement like I do my finances. And it's an uphill battle.
Like Karen was saying earlier, a lot of times the older adult still doesn't want to make changes, no matter, even if it's not costing them a penny. People will say, nope, that's not necessary, no matter how it's phrased, explained, try it, we'll take it out if you don't like it. I mean, anything. So I think that's a true obstacle too that we might need to think about.
I find people can pay for whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
If money's never really an obstacle. It's an excuse, but not an obstacle, especially for something like what we're doing.
Right. No, I'm saying like people don't think they need it,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
they don't think they need it.
Right.
I, I don't know if we could use, how could we use the model of the grants, like the older adult, because my experience with them, we hit one home in a mobile park, and we end up doing 45 homes there, just word of mouth. And I gave a presentation first, and I have the first reaction is like, Or no, my parents, and these were like 65 and 70-year-old people. Oh, I don't need it. My parents may need it. And I'm like, their parents, they might be 90 and you are like 70. Don't you think that you may need it now? Then at the beginning was a reaction, no, no, no. But when we start giving it for free, and then they will start talking, we have 19 people in the waiting list in the same park. In another park, we did 37. We reached the cap with the grant. And how can we use that model of telling people, and it was like $5,000 for each home, 4,700 to 5,000. How could we use that model to make them realize that with this little, because 5,000, yes, it may sound a lot for them, but like what Karen was said, is the money is not the issue really. When there is the emergency, $5,000 is nothing compared with $4,000 in an assisted living a month, or $4,000 to $6,000. Then how could we shape or use this model to do it to other communities that are not under grants?
I mean, we need a funding source, but I mean, we would need a funding source. When we do for like what we do for aging in places, we always do a short-term recommendations. Typically, they'll go along with that. Then I find they're excited about how much easier things are in their house. They never expected it to be this much easier. And then they're up for the bigger stuff, the construction, like the real reconstruction. But I mean, my worry, I don't really want to pursue grant funding. We've got a bunch of grants, but I don't see that as something that's going to continue, at least not enough to put our eggs all in that basket.
I mean, I would argue too that part of what we need to do is understand that when we say home modifications as an OT profession, I don't know if you guys agree, and Karen, maybe you will because you do the construction side. There's like an adaptive equipment piece of home modifications, and then there's the actual construction piece of home modifications. And a lot of OTs, when we first get started, we're really only comfortable in that adaptive modification piece, but we kind of need to up our skills in other things and start doing this cross-sector collaboration or cross-sector learning so that we understand what our lane is when it comes to design, but we know just enough that we can convince a designer that we should be part of the team. That's like where I kind of try to live. So I agree. I don't think the grant space is going to work forever. Like I'm planning on most of that part of my business disappearing in the next 2 years. So it's like, well, what other skill do I have? And it's not going to be just adaptive modifications. It's going to be finding that. I mean, 5 years in, I finally have people coming back to me from a year, like 3 years ago, who did those short terms, just like you recommend, Karen. And now they're suddenly like, oh, you helped my mom. We need to do this now, or we bought a new house and we'd like to bring you in because we recognize how important you were. And now it's getting into that design piece. So I don't know, just something to think about, that sometimes it's a little bit of the long game, at least what I'm experiencing.
Ethan,
Sorry.
did you have something to say?
I had a comment, I had a thought based on what Melba was just talking about, and I agree. The grant, don't count on the grants, not in this environment, and don't count on the grants if this environment ever changes, because it's going to be hard to find that money again. But what I was going to say is what Melba's talking about, the dynamic she's talking about, has to do with affiliated groups. She's talking about, you said trailer parks, Melba, I think. So you've got neighbors living in close proximity, and you don't need grant money to kind of, use those kind of that kind of wave that moves through a community. And there are other communities, perhaps religious congregations, where they may have, a lot of them do have committees that support, elderly concerns, or different interests. And, once one person sees somebody doing it and you overcome that initial reluctance, and a lot of this has to do with, especially with if you're dealing with adult children of aging parents, how do I talk about it? My parents don't want to talk about it. It's getting past that kind of, you need the social proof, right? That this is possible. So there may be other instances where you could, have those same dynamics apply without necessarily having to have the funding. Just having a couple successful examples where people can talk and they see that doing that work and planning is actually a responsible part now of what it is to grow older, uh, in this country, anywhere. But you have to have those conversations. Which is just a thought I wanted to share.
Thank you. Brandy? Brandy, did you have something you wanted to say? Your hands up.
I did. Sorry. Hey, the one thing that I took away from and I was thinking about for a while is like a tagline. And so what you were just saying now, Ethan, is all about like perception in society. And I know we're here talking about home mods, but this is a problem for the whole profession. And if we had a simple tagline, I mean, just think about got milk, right? Like milk's not even the most healthy thing that we should be having. But we do think that because we had a long marketing strategy that happened from the lobby. And so I know it's hard for us to organize, but even if we started as a grassroots effort and came up with, especially from a home mod standpoint, because so many people want to get into home mods, like what is our easy tagline that we all repeat and we all say so that everybody knows, oh, OTs help people live life. Like whatever it is that we come up with, I really think if we get a groundswell of people to do that and we keep reinforcing that, it's the long game, but it's also like the magnification game for us.
Good point. Very good point. And I think that's identifying the pain points and then putting together a slogan or something like that to release the pain points, so to speak. Or do you think it's just occupational therapy in general? I personally want it to
In
have something to do
general.
with home mod.
No, I think it's in general because we do
It
so
is.
many things across so many spectrums. Like we just talked about like 12 different ways you can get referrals, right? As a home mods OT. And that's different marketing to each place and when you want to get down to it. But they gotta first kind of have some awareness. We need an awareness campaign about OT, right? So that at least somebody's like, oh,
Agreed.
I heard about that. And then you can say financial planner, whatever, whoever. Home mods does this because OTs help you live life, and we do this part of that. You know what I mean? So like we need it as a whole profession.
Agreed. Although, like for instance, AOTA has the live life to the fullest. I think that's great. I think that really explains that really is the essence of what we do, but that doesn't get rid of any of the mystery of what we do.
Well, I would also,
Karen,
I'm sorry, I didn't have my hand raised. Do I need to raise my hand?
I
Uh,
didn't either. This is Judy.
hey, Judy.
I've just been listening to the whole thing. Of course, I do think it comes down to marketing. We've struggled with this forever, right? We went to every HBA home show and demonstrated products, and people go, oh, we don't need that. Oh, we don't need that. They walk by until they need it. But it goes down to marketing. And when she talked about got milk tagline, I always hear, in my community, there's a service called A Place for Mom. Have you heard those advertisements?
Yep.
And I always want to come back with, well, what about a place for mom is her own home? Or just
I love that.
turn that tagline around. I mean, it is marketing. We've got to have a tagline, and I totally agree with that guy said too. Yes, it just boils down to that. But I think as OTs, we never had money to put into marketing. That's always been the
Right.
problem. That's all.
I love that, Bridget. Live life to the fullest at home. Ethan, did you want
I
to?
was just going to say, you've got to make a distinction between AOTA and HMOTA, right? Because AOTA is in a kind of a different business than what you're in with home modifications. So if you're going to do a tagline, it does absolutely has to be specific to the problem and solution that you are uniquely qualified to offer. And I think I absolutely agree with you that the tagline is really important. Taglines are not the kind of thing that you get out of a brainstorming session, but they take work. But if you can, develop the right one and everybody starts using the same language, you will have an identity that, AOTA is going to, they're going to notice, and but I haven't seen any evidence that they're doing much to promote, anyone's ability to do well with home modifications, besides
Well, no, and I think that's where Brandy's correct, where she says this really has to be a grassroots sort of thing. It's got to come from us
yeah.
as practitioners. To which I say, how do we do that? How do we make this work? I guess that'll be something we're going to have to continue to focus on and try to identify. I feel like I don't think it's hard finding clients. It's just getting the clients to realize that they need us.
I think that we need to start with like the tagline. I think that like as a group and as a group trying to create like like Ethan was saying, like a marketing campaign as a group to identify ourselves as unique in the area. We are OTs, yes, but we need to identify ourselves as an OT in the areas of the home modifications. So we can, when we say they don't need OT, what is, and we need to explain, and then the information get lost while we are trying to explain what is that we do. Then we start with the tagline, and then we can work as a team.
And one thing that Ethan and I had discussed at one time, do we really need to say occupational therapist? Nobody knows what that is. Or do we need to say OT? Nobody knows what that is either. But OT might just be a little bit more elegant, easier for people to digest. Kristen?
I was just going to say, I thank you so much for having this tonight. And I think what the guys shared was so integral. I think when you meet an OT entrepreneur, you are meeting someone who is a big picture thinker. We are creative. We want to fix systems. We don't care as much about the one-on-one. Not that that doesn't make us the money, but I think we are so disadvantaged in this country compared to physical therapy, where our education did not teach us to be small business owners. It did not talk about marketing. And I hate the fact that I feel like each of us is reinventing the wheel every time I meet an OT entrepreneur. Like, yeah, I did all this stuff too. And it took me 3 years to figure all this out. And, just at least this group in this format, that we are trying to make this more efficient and using experts who, again, these guys sound like they're just naturally gifted and they look at systems in a different way than we do. We have a great eye, but we are not really great business people. So thank you so
Agreed.
much for this. I'm so excited about it.
I'm glad they wanted to come, and I'm glad Ethan is here as well. He's going to be working on marketing for HMOTA in general, but I think maybe we need to do a little more of this sort of thing. Plus, Herb also, I think, is thinking he wants to come back and do, a more of a marketing brainstorm sort of thing.
Yeah, if it makes anyone feel any better, it's not just you. Social workers. My daughter's a social worker, marriage and family therapist. My mother was a marriage and family therapist. I can tell you, if you are in it to help people heal and do the work, and you're willing to go through the brain damage of the training and the heavy lifting, especially if you've got older parents or you're involved with your own family, and it's just a lot. And that's why I reached out, because I just to let you know, when I was looking to talk about home modifications, there was a lot of different sources to go to, including, something called, senior home specialists now. People are just making stuff up. And, I sought out Karen because she's an occupational therapist. I grew up in a medical family. I know the difference. Most people don't. And, occupational therapists have owned this space for decades. And now the wolves are coming in a big way. But it doesn't but the fact that you don't intuitively know how to go out and, do all this other stuff, there are a lot of other people in adjacent professions in the same boat. So, don't feel bad. The important thing is you have a group of like-minded people who are looking for a way forward and who can help share the emotional burden of doing this, because that's the heavy lifting, is the emotional work. Okay. Because the rest of it, there are solutions, and what Herb's talking about is not rocket science. It just feels like magic because it's not what you focused on for your career. It's what Herb's focused on. It's what I focus on. So, we see it, and you're very close to it, but it doesn't, have faith. When I talk to Karen, and as you know, Karen's no pushover. She knows what's going on, and we're doing some. I think we've got some very interesting work ahead of us.
So what I'd like to do is continue this either in the HMOTA community that at HMOTA.org, or even maybe even we're definitely going to have another meeting about this. Our next meeting is the first, like August 4th, I think it is the first Monday in August, and we've got a man from Lotus Key Control, Ring Control, who's going to be here. But the following, maybe we should just say third Mondays is the Mondays we're going to be working on marketing. But I would like to continue this conversation about marketing and what's going in and what we can do to overcome it, different taglines, different slogans. I'm going to be meeting with Ethan this week. I'm going to be meeting with Herb this week. And then what I'll do is I'll send out an email with a link to the HMOTA.org site. So that way we can have some good conversations there as well.
Hey,
I
Karen,
mean, we've got a community. Let's work it.
Yeah. I missed the very beginning, but how did you get connected with Herb? Can you give a brief recap of why they were here in the first place?
Cynthia Laurie is a HMOTA OT in Atlanta, and she connected with them. And they do business. They've got a business pod or business radio broadcast where they talk to different CEOs, gives you a lot more insight into the brain of a CEO, really. But they're all dealing with aging in place issues with their parents right now. So they decided they're going to have to they want to do a series on aging in place. So I gave them a lot of people's names here. Marlene was one of them, Judy, Bridget, a few other people. But so they've just been interviewing OTs. And they're trying to figure out, how to. I think what's going on is they see this big market. It's a Wild West here. How can we get it organized and scale it? And that's part of what they want to talk with me about tomorrow is, what can we do to organize and scale this market? And it's going to, again, come down to, the tagline and identifying the market. So, and maybe we'll have another meeting a Monday that's not a first or a third Monday just to talk about this, especially if we've got a lot of really pressing things going on. But I do think we do need to figure out our tagline for OTs in general and for home mod OTs. And then everybody use that.
Yeah, I thought they were great too. Thanks. I'm so glad you brought them on.
Yeah, like I said, I think they're going to be coming again. They seem to be very interested in this. They've reached out to me several different times about a lot of different things on the aging in place. So, and then again, Ethan's going to be a really a strong ally for us as well. So it's time to start, growing our market. So, yeah. So, aging in place, watch out, here we come. So, all right. Well, everyone, please have a wonderful evening, and then we will be talking more about the tagline and how to promote our profession, specifically in aging in place and home mods. All right.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.